It is Monday night. It's the Irish NFL show, the night the night after London time. Colin Cronin is here while I unmaximize my screen, and so is Mr. Brian O'Leary. First off, welcome into everybody watching. A huge thank you to everybody who watched the live show from Tottenham Stadium yesterday morning. We cannot thank you enough. But Colin, I'll start with you. Welcome into the show.
Evening, absolutely brilliant couple of days, and so great to meet with so many people, and we have loads of people to thank. Huge shout out to NFL UK for all their help over the past couple of days, obviously to D Orlando as well for coming on, and I know he was a busy man. Yes, he was recording his own podcast alongside flying back last night, but yeah, really just fantastic few days.
Mr. O'Leary, how are you getting on?
I'm grand, just echo Colin's thoughts on the weekend. It was a really enjoyable weekend. Really good show yesterday morning on the rooftop. As you touched on, it was really good at D Orlando to give up his time and come on and discuss the game a few hours in advance. I know he had a very busy day, but for me, I thought it was an enjoyable game. I think the expectations on the game leading up to it weren't great, but once the Jets won last week, it seemed to kind of re-energize people's thoughts and interest in the game. And I thought for two teams that have struggled this season, I thought they gave us an entertaining game. And I think the right team won. And we touched on it yesterday morning around Kyle Pitts and when he was going to start kind of having his breakout games. And I suppose it was obvious that with the struggles that the Jets have had in the secondary, yesterday was the day, and you could see yesterday why he was selected as the fourth pick, because I thought he was far and above the best player in the field.
To the 30 people watching this, welcome in. Feel free to comment on Periscope on Twitter, and we'll try and read them out as quickly as possible. The Irish NFL Show is presented by Matchbook Betting Exchange. You can use code Irish NFL Show to get a bonus on your initial deposit in both sterling and in euros. 18 plus, please gamble aware. We're also presented by Trust Gaming. It was a great day's crack yesterday. I only got home this morning, 6 a.m. flight, watching Sunday Night Football in the airport, boys. Great fun. I want to give a shout out to the boys from Bangor and also the boys from Armagh that were in the airport this morning. Jets fans, Falcons fans, Tampa Bay fans, and also Giants fans sitting with me with a phone at 5:10 in the morning watching Sunday Night Football. Fantastic crack. Colin, you look a lot more fresher than me.
Yeah, I fortunately didn't have to get a 6 a.m. flight and do a day's teaching, Michael. So I was not in the airport quite as early as you. But obviously, the big weather delay helped it. At least it meant that there was something to watch in the airport, because ordinarily the game would obviously be over at that point. But I imagine there were some very tired people, both who were at the game yesterday, but also Bills and Chiefs fan who stayed up for that game last night.
Yeah,
I didn't envy you, Michael. In fairness, I thought about your commute back this morning and having to go and do a day at the office, shall we call it? And fair play.
That's grand. It's grand. Look, at the end of the day, like anybody in North will tell you, Belfast's so close to everyone, so it was 100%. Yeah. As long as the plane takes off, boys, all good. And I touch wood for next week as well. Yeah. Right. Very quickly, just obviously you're talking about not envying me. You'll envy me now, Brian. Sláinte, boys. It was a good show yesterday, Colin. Like to do it from Tottenham Hotspur Stadium outside of it and have the Orlando one was pretty special, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose being there early meant that we really got to see it kind of develop over the course of the morning. When we first arrived, it was just all those working that day. And then, you could begin to feel the excitement and the buzz build. You could begin to hear the noise over the on the road below, and by the time we were done with the show, at that point it was already really kind of built up around the stadium. I mean, look, fans on this side of the Atlantic get to the, we mightn't have the tailgating culture that they do in America, but fans still show up early, and just a really great buzz.
Michael,
Brian,
Michael, sorry, would you stick that photograph up again for me?
I was going to say you're looking very snazzy there, bro.
Oh well, thanks very much, Michael. I appreciate the nice gesture. It's actually Colin in particular. I'm more focused on. See, whilst it did turn out to be a very nice day and the weather was quite mild, at that stage in the morning it wasn't. And Colin looks like a man with gritted teeth there that's actually freezing his left leg off, shall we say?
Post watershed, we can't say it. Very quickly, we met a few faces yesterday. And we met Melissa Stark. We've got a video for her coming up in a second. It was great to meet her, Colin, as well, and also the king of. Oh, he didn't win. I'm a celebrity, but Vernon Kane. Apparently, boys, Vernon has promised to come on in the off season. I don't know. Will he come on? We'll find out. And Dan Hansis, huh?
Just send them back that photograph. That remind them.
I'm sure it will. Literally bomb scared the man. Dan Hansis, who stated, quote, I'm going to say this in this show, and he says, we would love to do a show in Ireland. Watch this space. And I told him, Brian, that, you better give
watch this space. That's in my house, is it?
Yeah, and finally for us, before we get Brian's big, we've got one from you as well, Brian. Anthony Wooten from the Transatlantic Sports Show. It was good to chat to him. I haven't listened back to his podcast yet, but we did appear on it. And again, Brian, a very snazzy shirt from Colin, who was getting. Well, actually, Colin won't tell you this. There was a sports reporter from New Orleans yesterday who was wearing a snazzy shirt, and he stopped Colin because they were only two guys wearing it.
It was a strategic move by Colin because he said, just in case I don't get to meet anybody in particular in there, I'll certainly get noticed with my shirt. It's a very clever move.
Brian, who is this guy here? Who is this?
Oh, that's Liam. That's Liam, a good friend of mine, who happened to come up to me and say, are you from the Irish NFL show? And I said, yeah, I am. So, we got on like a house on fire. I found a new friend.
Thank you to Liam. I thought that photo was class. I had to put it up. Right, so we spoke, just before we look at last night's games and talk about the games and everything, we spoke to Melissa Stark yesterday, just before the game, and unfortunately, Colin, as you'll tell me, the Wi-Fi in Tottenham wouldn't allow me to put this up, so I have to put it up now. But great to speak to Melissa, and really appreciate her taking the time out because she was flat out yesterday. And here's us chatting to Melissa before the game yesterday. Here outside Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, Irish went out from kickoff. Delighted to be joined by Melissa Stark, NFL Network. Melissa, a very, very warm welcome to the Irish NFL show. How are you doing ahead of this game today?
Great. I'm so excited to be here. We love coming to London for these games.
And you've obviously been in London now all week. So how have you found the experience so far?
I love London. This is my favorite trip. I absolutely love coming here, and they sort of send me, I guess I'm sort of the international girl, and it's perfect. It's great.
Yeah, obviously a couple of years since games. Great to have it back. You can sense the vibe from the crowd. So much energy and enthusiasm. What are you looking forward to today? I mean, obviously Zach Wilson, a rookie QB, making his debut on the international stage.
Yes.
But two head coaches, making their,
rookie head coaches.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on today's game?
Well, it's interesting because there's a statistic that no rookie quarterback has won in London, so he's looking to do that. So the Jets are coming off thrilling overtime win. So they're looking to build on that momentum. The Falcons are coming off of a disappointing loss. Both teams are 1-3, and it's a long flight over here. It's a much longer flight home if you go home 1-4. So, but it's great. It's a business trip for the players. I think they do a little bit of sightseeing. I got to do some sightseeing earlier this week. I did a couple of live shots. I did one in front of the River Thames in Big Ben and Parliament, and I was in front of the Palace one day. So, we love it, taking it all in. And actually, the NFL. I announced yesterday the NFL is expanding the international series, and they're committed to a couple of games in London, one in Mexico, and now one in Germany. And they're going to announce on Tuesday the 3 finalist cities in Germany, and it could be as early as 2022. So we're looking forward to that. I'll go to Germany. Sprechen Sie Deutsch, right?
Really looking forward to it. I regret not taking my tripod, Melissa. I'm not going to lie. But when we had...
Is your arm getting tired?
Yeah, just a little bit. When we had Rich Eisen on the show,
yeah.
He was talking about he couldn't wait to get to London. He's not here today. I'm presuming you're here next week as well, yeah?
I'm not here next week. It's a different crew, different broadcast crew coming in next week.
Well, thanks so much for coming on today, and enjoy the game today. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Very quickly, yeah, those Germany games are announced tomorrow, or like the cities. My understanding, Brian, is that it's Munich, Dusseldorf, and Frankfurt. Now we can say it in this show now because nobody's going to go back in the 12 minutes in and say that, but my money is on Munich, gentlemen. Just putting it out there.
Seems like the most obvious ones are, right? Yeah. Hopefully Munich, because I've been there quite a few times for some United away games. Great spot. Great stage.
Looking forward to it. Thanks to Melissa for coming on, and thanks to anybody that spoke to us, whether inside or outside the stadium, both on Saturday and Sunday. Great weekend. Turns out Zach Wilson isn't that small in real life, and I'm sure we'll get to talk about that at some point more in the future. Bills, boys, beating the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football at like 10 a.m. this morning when the game finally went on again. I got up at 4 o'clock thinking, right, I'll check the score here, and I couldn't believe it was halftime. I was delighted. But Colin, a huge win for the Bills. The Chiefs again gave up more than 30 points, and now, are sitting fourth in the AFC West, and you've got teams in the AFC West playing each other this weekend, and that could potentially get worse.
Yeah, look, there are obviously big problems on the defensive side of the ball in Kansas City, and I think the abiding memory of that game will be Honey Badger putting his arms in the air, just like as Dirty Dan Sorensen got beaten all ends up. I mean, the Chiefs obviously just, they have to sort it out, but they have the capability to do it. Like right now, they've lost 4 of the past 6. Prior to that, they had won 12 in a row, and prior to that, they'd won 25 of the previous 26. So, something is up. But the biggest issue was running into a Bills side who are just absolutely fantastic. And I know we talk about the Bills offense, but the Bills defense were just brilliant. Like the game plan for them yesterday was really good. They didn't blitz once, and yet they still got pressure. They sacked Mahomes twice, but it allowed having the people in coverage. It made it so much more difficult for the Chiefs. And you would have to say that, in fairness to the Bills, they put a plan in place for Josh Allen to go get him and then to build around him. But they've looked to address all of the issues that they have. Last year, they looked to address those in the offseason. So they're not a team where you're saying, oh, this was an issue last year and they did nothing about it. Pass rush was one of the areas last year that they needed to address around pressure. They look to do that. So I was very impressed with the Bills, and they really did a number on the Chiefs for me. What were your thoughts on the game, Brian?
Well, again, you touched on the Chiefs in terms of next week. Well, they're playing Washington, probably another team in the league who's also struggling with a defense, giving up over 30 points. They might be okay next weekend. The Chiefs defense, I mean, they're setting records now going back to when Bob Sutton was there, which was 2018 when they lost that championship game to the Patriots, when they went offside and potentially could have won the game. They gave up 30, 40 points, and they were averaging that type of points in terms of what they were giving up at the time. And it just doesn't seem to be going any better. Spags is interesting. The guy who called Spags from the Giants, he has 2 or 3 years, really productive years as a defense coordinator, and then it always seems to go the same way in terms of how many points they're giving up in terms of the defense he's managing. So he's going to have to address it over the next few weeks. And for Mahomes has grown impatient. Like, teams aren't blitz heavy on the Chiefs now. It's actually an all-time low over the past 5 years. Teams used to be continuously blitzing. Now they're not blitzing on them, which is essentially, let's not blitz, let's just take Tyreek Hill out of the game. I mean, I know he had a great game last week against the Eagles, but if you look throughout the course of the first 5 weeks of the season, his numbers are way down in comparison to other years. It's like, who do we take out, Kelsey or Hill? Let's take out Hill. Let's not blitz. Let's make Mahomes grow impatient. And when he grows impatient, he throws interceptions, which is not very often at the same time, but he's thrown 6 already this season. Last season, he threw 6 throughout the 16 games. Throughout the 16 games last year. And he's already thrown 6 this year because he's just not getting the players open that he's used to seeing. But I think they're fortunate. They're going to play Washington next week and they'll rebound. And other teams in the division will knock each other off. So it makes them competitive again.
Yeah, Broncos playing the Raiders and Washington playing the Chiefs. Not sure the Chargers play. Check that on Sunday. But look, Mahomes throwing 2 picks. Allen looking clean. The Bills refusing to make a big deal out of this result. It is a big deal. If you had told me in January that this would happen and the Chiefs would go 3 games in a row conceding 30 points, you start to doubt where they're going. Obviously they're going to win games. They're going to get to the playoffs, but I just can't see them getting far. Currently, Buffalo looked just so good last night, man. And it's not just Josh Allen, but having guys like Dawson Knox getting over 100 yards with a touchdown. The one thing that does concern me, and it's a real little thing, like the Russian leader was Josh Allen. They need to try and get a run game going. And we said this last year with Devin Singletary, but if Zach Moss and Devin Singletary have a combined rush of 60 yards in the game, it doesn't matter if you're playing the Chiefs or playing the Jaguars, that needs to be improved. But again, the Bills are looking really good. To go to Arrowhead and put up 38 points, even if they had won or lost, is sensational in terms of offense. And I can see them just getting better and better, Brian.
Yeah, no, I agree with John. The point around Josh Allen, he ran for 62 yards last night and a touchdown. Like, fine last night, but the reality is over the course of the season, if you're continuously doing that, you're going to get banged up and you're going to end up in a concussion situation at some stage. And then potentially you could be ruled out of a game the following week, which at that stage of the season could be a significant game. So you're right, they're going to have to address that. They've scored 172 points already this season. So they've gone from being, for a long time, being seen as a very defense-oriented team to be a very offensive-centric team now, and it's kind of changed. But in fairness to the defense is re-energized. And Colin and myself chatted last week. To beat the Chiefs now, for the Chiefs to beat teams now defensively, they have to be held at 24, 27 points. That's just not happening once you get into the 30s. That's the reason why they're not winning these games.
And it's
Chargers,
definitely a
Chargers go to the Ravens on Sunday. Big game.
That's a big game. Chargers beating the Browns 47-42 last night in what could be classed at Colin as almost a cricket score at one point. But Justin Herbert just looks stunning.
Yeah, he does. Quite simply, nothing phases the kid. He is just unbelievable. When he needs to make it happen, he makes it happen. I was saying, Michael, that he recorded his 11th career game over 300 plus passing yards, which is the most by any player in their first 2 years. We're only 5 games into his second year, and they keep saying it. The lack of preseason games appears not to be hurting Justin Herbert in any way, shape, or form. I think they need to stop referring to him as a rising star, because he clearly is a superstar at this point. And look, the Chargers seem to have got a really great head coach who has players playing for him. And when they need to pick it up in whatever way they need to do, they in the fourth quarter against the Chiefs, in the fourth quarter against the Browns, if Herbert stays fit, they are well capable of making a deep playoff run. They're now absolutely nailed on favorites. The AFC West started off hot, but given everything that's going on with the rest of the teams in the division, Chargers are favorites for that now and continue to be very, very impressive.
Brian, 398 passing yards, 4 touchdowns from Justin Herbert last night.
And the Browns defense was only on the field for 23 minutes in the entirety of the game. So you look at that, and yet there was like 400 yards thrown. Basically, he was just hitting their secondary time and time again. They were greatly exposed, which was a surprise, because on the show yesterday at Tottenham, I was kind of waxing lyrical about how I felt the Browns defense had been arguably one of the best in the league so far, up there with the Bills. And they go out and give that, and for to be only on the field for 23 minutes shows it wasn't methodical long drives. It was literally bang, bang, bang. 8 lead changes in the game, 4 in the fourth quarter. But it wasn't, for me, it wasn't about Herbert. It was about Mayfield. Because look, we're used to seeing this from Herbert now, so it comes with the territory when you watch the Chargers. Mayfield has been put in this position time and time again to win these type of games. When I think back to that divisional round against the Chiefs last year, he had the opportunity to win the game and couldn't pull it out. And yesterday, they got the ball at the end, 2 minutes to go, and he's doing check down passes. So he's actually killing himself. You'd be better off throwing it out of bounds and just going for the long throw, trying to get the force down and moving the ball on. Check downs with 2 minutes to go when you've no timeouts. You're killing yourself. You're wasting the clock. It's just manageable plays that you should be doing in the second quarter, not when you need to score a touchdown at the end. Just time and time again. If I was a Browns fan, look, he's a good quarterback, but you have to get frustrated when there's those moments, in a season where you need to win those type of games, and he's not pulling them out.
There's a comment from Fred Flunk, which I'll put up in 2 seconds.
Oh, yeah, we know Fred, yeah.
Yeah. How's the form, Fred? It concerns the Cowboys against the Giants. Cowboys winning 44-20. Obviously, that's not the full story with the injuries for the Giants, but Fred Flunk saying, tell the truth, lads. How impressed has this Dallas team been? I'm not sold on McCarthy, but the team seems balanced on both sides of the ball. Colin, do you want to even focus on what Fred's saying there with the Cowboys? And then obviously, I'm sure, Brian, you might have a couple of things to say about the Giants.
Yeah, look, the Cowboys have been really impressive. I mean, their last game to the Bucks, but they put it up to the Bucks. In fairness, and look, we've talked about it. They have an array of weapons, so they can beat you any which way. Dak is playing at such a high level, and look, I will say, like Dan Quinn, we definitely had questions, I think, before the season began. Obviously, we're 5 weeks in, and there's still a long way to go. But right now, you'd have to say their defense is playing very well, and the takeaways they're so opportunistic, and takeaways make such a difference. And look, Diggs is, I think, one more interception away from a couple of different records. But if you're throwing it anywhere in his vicinity at the moment, you're in big trouble. I think given the struggles for the other teams in that division, Brian will probably address the Giants' injuries. Washington just not, really just all like it's just not working. And the Eagles, who had a good win, but you'd have to say that the Cowboys should be heavy favorites to get to the playoffs. And look, once you have a ticket to the dance, anything can happen. We've seen plenty of teams who were unfancied at the start of the season get to the playoffs, and you can catch lightning in a bottle. But when you have the weapons that they do, and when you have the ability to get at teams in all those different ways, and yeah, Michael, you said earlier, like one of the Bills, the weakness that might be at some point might be the running game. But that's not a weakness for the Cowboys, right? You take away the run game, it's like, right, grand, we'll throw the ball through the air. We'll take away the passing option, right? Well, then we've got a two-headed monster. And unlike, Brian was talking about Baker, and one of the issues is that it is the screen passes and the shorter stuff. That can go long. That can beat you in a number of different ways. So Cowboys are serious business.
I think what the difficulty for the Cowboys further down the line is because the division is so weak, and I don't see Washington turning things around. I think the Giants' season is potentially up already. Eagles will a bit of hit and miss. They'll win 1 week, they'll lose the next. I think this division could be over by maybe November, back end of November, certainly around Thanksgiving. And then what do the Cowboys do then? Do they continue to play the first team players, or do they take a bit of foot off the gas? And then once you hit the playoffs, unless, like we saw with the Bucks, and if you're not hot going into the playoffs, we've seen time and time again where 4 seeds have rested players in the past, and then they get knocked out straight away. So that could be the difficulty in terms of maintaining the, I suppose, the focus and the drive. I'm still not sold on the defense. Like you just say, no, yeah, they're improving. They gave up 198 yards to a rookie wide receiver yesterday. He didn't get into the end zone, but he had a fantastic game for the Giants. And I'm going to put my Giants hat on, obviously, with my Giants t-shirt. So last week I had Saquon Barkley's jersey over here. Well, this week I brought the Grim Reaper because I can't recall a game in the NFL, and I've been watching it since 1986, where you lose your quarterback, your number one running back, and your number one wide receiver in a game when you've just, we went in on the following play after Jones went out, but we were actually coming into the game at that stage, and we tied it up 10-0. And Cowboys went down with another touchdown before halftime. Even in the second half, Mike Lennon dropped him down, and we went for it on 4th and goal, and we had us pushed that even. We would have been close in the game in the third quarter. So the score looks like it was a blowout. It went away from us in the fourth, but when you're playing without 5 of your 6 wide receivers, your main running back and your main quarterback, and 2 offensive line guys gone, you're never going to beat the Cowboys. It's hard to beat the Cowboys in Dallas when you have a full team. Never mind when you're playing with, as Mike Lennon said in the press conference after, I thought I was playing in the preseason game number 2 again, because the players I was throwing to in that game were the same guys I was throwing the ball to tonight.
Absolutely, and it's
like the
whole Cowboys. I like the Grim Reaper. I feel like the Grim Reaper's at my door after going to London yesterday and sleeping for about 6 hours this weekend. I'm really impressed with the Cowboys, and I'll say that and leave it at that for now. Good win for him yesterday. Obviously, terrible to see what happened to Jones and Barkley. You don't want to see it happening to anybody, especially after the week that Barkley had last week. Two quick things I want to focus on. We can maybe jump on it together, boys. Brady throwing 5 touchdowns against the Dolphins. I mean, Jesus, boys, come on. And then secondly, the Titans getting a big win over the Jaguars. So 2 teams going to London this weekend. We are in London on Sunday, again, 9 a.m. from Tottenham Hotspur. Join us live ahead of the Miami Dolphins against the Jacksonville Jaguars. You're going to be sick of me saying that by Sunday. But Colin, Brady and the Titans on track. Titans getting the win after last week, and Brady just looking immortal.
Yeah, look, in 9 regular season games since the bye in 2020, Brady has 27 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and 3,100 passing yards. He's averaging 350 a game. He's averaging 3 touchdowns a game. I mean, it's just ridiculous. If the Dolphins, huge concerns. I mean, to give up 45 points. We talked about it yesterday in the preview game that the defense was worrying, but 45 is enormously concerning. The issue, like the Titans got the win, but the issue for them is how many sacks they are giving up. Like Tannehill's playing well, but like the Jags were the least effective pass rush unit prior to the game yesterday, and they were still able to get at Tannehill. That would be an enormous concern. I know they're without they're a couple of their top wide receivers, but even still, with the Jets having got to him 7 times, obviously we saw what Chandler Jones did, and now the Jags, big concern.
The Jags let some points out there yesterday. I mean, they had he was intercepted in the red zone, Lawrence, and then they went for at that stage of the game they had to go for it on 4th and goal, and they didn't get in. So look, it's a comfortable win for the Titans. I went for the Jags. I thought that they would somehow find a way to right the wrongs of the past week for Overmore, but it wasn't to be. And then Brady, like Colin's alluded to there, we said it. One of the last points on this game yesterday was we felt the Bucs would probably put up around 40 points. The over on the game was 48 points. I mean, the Bucs nearly did it on their own. And we also pointed out what a difficult start to the season that Miami's secondaries had, and you saw it yesterday. You know, we've got players like Evans and Brown going in for long touchdowns. It's going to be a long day for them. But look, this Sunday it's going to be. Right now, it's hard to know who you'd be picking for this game on Sunday. I think it does have the makings of a good game because we get to see Trevor Lawrence, and hopefully, I'm not sure what the situation is with Tua, but it would be nice if Tua was available. Good player to see as well, but right now I couldn't tell you now who's going to win that game on Sunday.
It does seem, touch wood, and I really hope it happens. It seems Tua might play, and please God it does happen. But executive decision, you and Mark are going to Urban Meyer's press conference after the game, 100%.
That should be fun.
Should be fun, and fair play to Colin. Publicly, I have to say it now. Colin had the guts to ask Matt Ryan a couple of questions yesterday. Colin, he's a tall boy, huh?
He is, and yesterday he 5,000 completions, and did it quicker than Peyton Manning did. But look, Brian said it, like Kyle Pitts was outstanding. They have to find ways to keep him involved because he is, super talented. Obviously, the focus yesterday, given they were missing their wide receivers. But you have to be somewhat happy for Arthur Smith as well, getting that, it obviously meant a lot. For the Jets, though, their offense continues to be enormously concerning. But we will see what the rest of the season brings them. But one young QB actually did really well yesterday, as a surprise, was Davis Mills. Because we'd said Dave Colley talked about bringing in additional QB help. Well, talk about Davis Mills taking that to heart and showing Bill Belichick usually loves going up against rookie QBs. But Davis Mills did really, really well yesterday, and it was unfortunate, obviously, the way it turned out for the Texans. The Patriots finding a way to win. With the Texans really kind of throwing the game away, Cully probably showing his inexperience with some of the decisions towards the end.
I saw Fred's funny comment there about Jason Garrett. I listened to a very good podcast today, a neutral NFL podcast, and he said, the Cowboys are back in town because the fans have come out of their hole again, and seems to be coming this way all right. And no, fairness to Fred, he's been a very good supporter of the show, but I have to give it back to him. Which game were we talking about? Oh, the Texans at 22-9, I think it was.
I couldn't believe that. Brian might have seen that score. I couldn't believe it.
So I was watching Red Zone traveling back last night, and it was actually great because I had time to myself, watch all these games. And at 22-9, I was going to text Mark. And I said, "Jesus, no, I better not. I better leave him alone." And just you're talking about tall people or taller people with Urban Meyer. Mark is probably the tallest guy I know, so I'm sure he'll be able to handle the question for Urban Meyer next Sunday. It's a shame, really, that the Texans didn't pull it off because it would have made for a really entertaining show for us, but not so much for Mark. But look, Belichick found a way to get it done, and they move on. And Harris was effective in the end, and the quarterback had a reasonably good game. So it's a good win for them. But they play the Cowboys next week. Let's hopefully Bill can scheme against Dak and the boys.
It was an intriguing game as well. The Packers playing the Bengals. Everybody calm was watching that game last night, just on the way out of the stadium. I think it was like mid-third quarter at that point, but an intriguing game, and it was a great finish for neutral. Packers getting the win, 25-22.
Yeah, well, look, the story obviously of the kickers and the Bengals thinking they had won it, but they didn't, and then Crosby does the business in the end. But for the Packers, look, it's the Davante Adams show. He's first in receiving, first in catches, first in first downs, first in he is right now the number one receiver in the league, and at least in terms of stats. But the Bengals showed that they are not the Bengals of old. But one of the things, Joe Burrow has to learn when to go down. Because we talked about Josh Allen, but Allen has learned a little bit, to try to keep out of harm's way. Saw Zach Wilson in person yesterday, looking to initiate contact. I think trying to show he's not going to be bullied. But you don't want to be taking hits. I mean, the speed and the size of the defensive guys in the NFL is so different to college. And fortunately, so Burrow was released from hospital, and he's good to go. But look, obviously his connection to Jamar Chase continues. Very good, but it's all on keeping him upright, keeping him safe, because that's what the Bengals need. But in fairness to them, you would have said a couple of years ago they would have wilted under Adams and Rodgers, connecting like that. But no, they're really playing well this year.
It's kind of hard to know because of the way the nature of how the game played out, who was actually the better team. 5 missed field goals in the game, 3 from the Packers. They say it's the first time there's been 5 missed field goals in the game since 1970. So that's how far back we're going to the dramatics of what we saw yesterday. And for the Packers, they were 2-5 in the red zone. And I touched on it yesterday on the show, the fact that the Jets won last week because the Titans didn't take touchdowns when they should have, in terms of they got into the red zone so many times and they had to settle for field goals. And that kind of played out a little bit with that game yesterday. Like even the second half of the Packers, field goal, missed field goal, winning field goal. So for all their dominance in the game, they were reliant on field goals. And when Crosby, who was prone to having one of those erratic days, in the end, it was one of those situations where we'll all keep having shots of field goals and someone's bound to put one over eventually, So look, it shows where the Bengals have come. I know I'm kind of touched on the fact that I felt Packers really were a more dominant team. You look at the yards, Rodgers was 360, 300 odd yards yesterday, and Adams was over 200. But the Bengals have come. I think the Bengals have come a long way. To be in that game, they're the type of games for years to be blown out of, and for them to be in that game, potentially have the opportunity to win it, with missed field goals, shows that they are going in the right direction with Zach Taylor, who gets a lot of criticism from people who are not too keen on him.
And Colin, just to touch on a couple more games before we look at, I guess, tonight's game on our matchbook special as well. The Vikings beating the Lions, and Big Ben isn't done yet. The Steelers beating the Broncos.
Well, look.
Well, let's not get you started in this. You've just been on a
Uh-huh.
podcast for an hour talking about it.
For the Lions, I mean, you saw Dan Campbell afterwards. You would feel for them because we talked about they just find new ways to lose. And I mean, I think I saw a stat earlier that said that when Greg Joseph stepped up to the kick, he'd about a 40% chance of making it. But you like that statistically, but you knew what it meant. You knew it was the Lions, and you knew, despite the Vikings' history of kicking in the last second, they were going. It was going over. I don't know what the Lions need to do to break that curse, but it's they you're as good as your record says you are, but they are so close. If they have a few more playmakers, you think they can make the jump, and. Look, I'll just in terms the Broncos made Big Ben and gave 10 years younger. They gave Najee Harris his first 100 yards on the ground. But it's worth reiterating here. The Broncos since 2017, in terms of average points scored, the Broncos were 26th in 2017. They were 24th in 2018. They were 28 in 2019, 28 in 2020, and they're currently 24th. This is a team who are just, I mean, they're not sluggish on offense. They're horrific. I mean, it's just boring. I mean, you didn't see, Michael, we didn't see Broncos. We saw fans wearing it, but the Broncos gear wasn't in sale in the store in London. Peter King didn't mention the Broncos in his column today. You look at the national media in America, nobody's talking about the Broncos because it's boring. And that's just not a place you want to be. And it just feels like Groundhog Day over and over and over again.
I think for the Broncos, the situation around the quarterback is because Drew Lock was so mediocre last year and Teddy had a reasonably good start. The expectations of what Teddy's going to bring to the team kind of grew a little bit over the first few weeks, not from yourselves, but potentially just Broncos fans in general. And then he might be coming back to what we expect, what we would have seen in the past. And in the long run, that's not going to win games. And Big Ben yesterday played well. He got protected better yesterday and he had some nice touchdowns. But I mean, the Broncos only started playing in the fourth quarter, to be honest, when they had an opportunity to make a comeback, which was disappointing for a team that's had a reasonably good start to the season. I think we're kind of painting over the cracks that are there, that the head coach is just not the right man in the long run, and people can shoot me down. And I don't know whether you feel that's the right. I know Colin certainly does, but look, we saw what he did last week. He was trying to mask a poor performance by blaming the Ravens for trying to set a record. What other team? Every team would want. If the shoe was on the other foot, he'd be doing the exact same thing. So, look, who have the Broncos got next week? The Raiders. It's gonna be a tough one. I know he's at home, but it'll be a difficult one. And I had another point there, but I've gone off. It's gone off the beat. Jack, what was the other game we discussed? Sorry. The Lions. I'm actually the Lions. I'm actually going to be critical of Dan Campbell here. Going for the 2-point conversion. I know they got it. I know they went in the lead, but that meant the Vikings had to go and attack them and go down and try again for a field goal. If they had taken the point and accepted overtime, the Vikings are never, with 20-odd seconds to go, going to run any plays. They're going to accept overtime. And having moved the ball up and down the field reasonably well all night, have confidence in Goff to do it in overtime and go up against that Viking defense and win it in overtime. I know it's small margins. I know if the kick goes slightly to the left, slightly to the right, they win the game. People are saying, what are you talking about? But for me, I just felt he should have played the safety option there and trusted his team to go and win it in overtime.
Loving some of the comments, boys. Owen, Fred Flunk, etc. Thanks a million, boys, for commenting on YouTube. You can watch, just type in the Irish NFL Show on YouTube. You can watch it live. You can stream it after. The podcast will be up by 10:20 tonight. A bit of breaking news. Brett Gosper has announced in the last hour or so that London will receive a minimum of 3 games per season from next year onwards, not indicating the venues. I can't see it going from Tottenham personally, but that's a different discussion for the off season or whatever. But Gosper coming out and saying at least 3 games plus at least one Germany. It means we're speaking Zay Dutch next year, gentlemen. Hopefully, please God. Are we ready to look forward to tonight, Monday Night Football, or have we any other business to touch on before we go?
No, I think that's the point. I wanted to make a point on the Washington football team. Like this defense, again, we said it, like we discussed it yesterday on the show with Tottenham. I picked the Saints. I know I'm not going down that road because I was the only one who picked them. But I just felt that the Saints are finding ways to play on offense throughout the season with James Winston, and Heineke will do magic for you and he'll get you points. But the reality is, until this Washington defense starts playing, and I see they're coming out now and even questioning Coach Rivera, which is unusual because at the start of the season he was the greatest coach that they've had in a long time, and now people are questioning his tactics and the fact that he can't seem to get this defense right. And Chase Young, who was rookie of the year, you have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe he had a sack yesterday, and we're going into the 6th game of the season, and they're playing against Chiefs on Sunday. And look, no matter what happens in this game on Sunday, whether they pull out or win or not, you will still expect the Chiefs to be putting up 28, 20 points on this defense. It doesn't seem to look like it's going to improve anytime soon.
Indeedy.
I think he got one yesterday. I think he had a strip sack. But look, yeah, no, your point stands, Brian. I mean, look, Jameis had like some of the time and what he was able to do yesterday. The other thing that's worth keeping an eye on, we'll discuss more next week. Sam Darnold beginning to really have a wobble, and how will he respond to that? Because he was down to 56% completion, and he was struggling yesterday. And that's obviously going to be a concern for the Panthers. But it's the next few weeks is where we really get to see, because now teams have 4 or 5 weeks on tape, right? When you 4 weeks on tape, teams really begin to scheme differently. So can he bounce back? He's certainly capable of it, but we're in for this part of the season is where, you really begin to earn your money, because nothing comes easy.
Yes, sir. Gonna have to move around a wee bit, Colin. Get in the middle. That's us. Right. Before we start talking about the picks for tonight, Brian, have you been checking the exchange for tonight? Have you any money on tonight? I don't know. Matchbook or sponsors, obviously.
Oh yeah, I checked it. I was on the Matchbook account there earlier on. Yeah, the Ravens are -7-point favorites in the game, and the over's 46. So they're expecting that.
Hold on. Did we win our bet yesterday?
No, unfortunately we didn't. We were let down. We got 3-4 right. The Raiders let us down. We never even touched on that game. That was actually
the Raiders.
So in fairness, we've been given. I know we're jumping onto the betting section, but we have to be fair. Like, we've been critical of the Bears and Matt Nagy and not Justin Fields, but we just felt we weren't sure whether it was the right time. And we touched on it before we start recording, the whole Gruden saga, which is going to be like an Urban Meyer type saga for the whole week now leading up to the next game, which happens to be against your Broncos. But fair play to the Bears. They went in and, look, they got very conservative in the second half. I've seen some Bears fans, including some friends of mine, being quite critical today of the fact that they literally went back into kind of a very non-productive offense in the second half. I don't think they scored any point on. They took a field goal in the second half, but the Raiders couldn't move the ball all day long. Derek Carr didn't look himself. He went out of the game, came back in, looked like he was gone for concussion. But look, I don't think many teams will go into Vegas and win as comfortably as the Bears did yesterday. So they're playing Green Bay this weekend. Interesting, if they were to pull it off, then them and the Bears would be 4-2.
The Bears.
Who knows? Sorry, Packers would be 4-2. So interesting game ahead this weekend, and it's in Chicago. So this is Justin Fields' time. Big game.
Arlington soon enough. The over and under on tonight's game presented by Matchbook Betting Exchange. Our sponsors. Use code Irish NFL Show for a bonus. You can bet in both sterling and in euros. Use code Irish NFL Show 18+. Please only gamble what you can afford. The over and under is 46.5. The handicap is the Ravens -7. Who have we got? Colin, start with you tonight.
Well, these are two teams with a bit of history, obviously. When the Colts up sticks and moved. So I suppose it's fizzled out over the years. It hasn't remained as maybe as intense as it was when the Colts obviously first did that back in '83. But there'll always be fans who'll remember what happened in the dead of night. The team picked up and drove out of town. So it's that always adds a little bit of extra kind of spice to this. The Ravens have been kind of overcoming the odds all season long. Any number of injuries, and they have been able to find a way to win games. We talked about Vic Fangio dared Lamar Jackson to beat him with his arm. So Lamar Jackson went and did it. You want Lamar Jackson to run all over you? He can do that too. The Colts obviously are like they have been beat up a lot this year. They're struggling with a number of different injuries. We discussed their use of Jonathan Taylor as well, but Carson Wentz, if they're to have any chance, they need him to get back to obviously towards that 2017 form. Right now, the Eagles have 3 top 10 picks in next year's draft, and their own pick is the lowest of those. So they're sitting pretty right now. For me, I just think I'm going to go with the Ravens on this. I think it'll be a very physical game. I think it'll be a close enough game. But I think that the Ravens will have enough to see them through, just with the weapons that they have. But I do think the Colts will put it up to them, and it will be an interesting one.
I was talking to some disgruntled Colts fans leading up to last week's game, and they're very disappointed by the lack of use of Taylor, the running back, because he was so effective last year. And I think Hines was getting more of the ball, and they were going to question why that was happening, because he's been one of their best running backs for the last couple of years. They're going to have nice long drives and utilize his run game and get it going. And the Ravens haven't given up a 60-plus runner, rushing yards to running back as yet in this season. So they're finding their feet on defense. They're going for 4 in a row. And you touched on there, Lamar Jackson. You challenged him last week to beat him with his arm, and I think tonight it's going to be the other way around. I think you're going to see him basically being as much a quarterback as the running back for the Ravens because of their injury. Because I know Murray's come in, who was previously with the Saints last year, and has done a pretty good job. But for me, I can see the Colts having nice long drives, but when they pick up these touchdowns, if they start only taking field goals, it's going to be a long night for them. I think the Ravens offensively will do enough. I think Lamar will go off him in terms of on his rushing. He's over 63 points, 63 yards on the betting exchange in terms of the over-under. I think he'll go over 63, potentially even running a touchdown. Ravens all day for me.
Ravens all day for Brian. Mark's pick, gentlemen, is, wait for it.
Chromebooks have the everything button.
Really? Do you remember YouTube never had adverts? Yeah? Like back in the day, there was never any adverts. Mark's pick is... wait for it. Where is Mark? The Ravens. Mark's picking the Ravens. Hi, Mark, if you're watching. Right. Mark is with us.
You might see Mark back sooner than that drum roll. How long it takes to go off.
Mark might make like a Tyson Fury come back to the show at some point this week. We're hoping maybe Thursday. He's definitely here on Sunday at Tottenham. Looking forward to that. And you talk about Lamar Jackson. You talk about this Ravens offense. Mark Andrews is going to win the game for the Ravens tonight. The Colts are not going to win this game tonight. I just can't see how the Colts are going to get near this Ravens offense. And the Ravens are really sleek, really smooth on the offense. And I just think Lamar Jackson will have a field day against them, to be honest with you. I'm picking the Ravens tonight. It's a full house, which does not happen a lot. You can bet on the exchange. Your win unders 46.5. Presented by our partners, Matchbook Betting Exchange. Matchbook, download the app. You can use it in the north. You can use it in the south. Euros, sterling, whatever you want, lads. And that is the picks for tonight, presented by Matchbook Betting Exchange. A massive thanks to our partners at Matchbook Betting Exchange. Brian, have we any funds left in the kitty to bet on next week, or what's the crack?
A little bit there, yeah. Hopefully we can rebound this coming Sunday when we're over in Tottenham again. Because we've been unfortunate the past 2 weeks. We've lost it in one game. Haven't gone on a bit of a hot streak the first 2 weeks. We've lost the last 2 weeks. So we'll have to right some wrongs this weekend when we make our picks.
Yes, sir. Live from Tottenham this Sunday at 9 a.m. We'll be back on Thursday night, looking ahead at Thursday night football and getting back into it. But we are live from Tottenham Sunday 9 a.m. We are also at the Fiddler Bar in Kilburn in London on Saturday night from 7 p.m. There should be a college game on as well. You can have a couple of pints with us before the big game on Sunday. If you're in London, feel free to come in. You can get tickets now online. There's more information on our Twitter account. And if you need any more information, you can give us a shout on Twitter. I'm at Michael_NFL. I think Brian O'Leary's is at BOL something. BOL 7
2903.
2903. And Colin at Colin from Cork. So that's us for this week, boys. We've somehow done it. We have went to London for the weekend, had very limited sleep, and we've come back and done a live broadcast. And you know what, boys? It's been a weekend to remember. I know next weekend it'll be even better with many faces, celebrities, of course. And here we have to get this guy on the show this weekend. It seems like an absolute top banter lad. This boy is.
Yeah, I'll have to get him on. Good old name. Great crack. Yeah.
Live.
There's premium
live
and there's premium and then there's premium with Liam. Let's put it like that.
Premium with Liam. That actually has a bit of a ring to it, to be honest with you. We're live from Tottenham. He's
coming to the Fiddler on Saturday, Michael.
Is he?
He is
then,
indeed.
Then we'll meet him on Saturday, and he's got his big debut tonight. Live from Tottenham Sunday 9 a.m. Join us on Thursday as well. Maybe it'll be a giveaway. Maybe we'll be giving away tickets for the game on Thursday. Maybe we won't. We've no idea.
Good game Thursday. Good game Thursday.
Can't get tickets for it, boys. So like, if we are giving away tickets, you might want to tune in. So we'll see you then, lads. Thanks a million, and see you on Thursday. Yeah.
See you then.
Go Broncos.